Good Sunday morning. Happy St. Patrick's Day and welcome to WGN TV Political Report. I'm Paul Listek. In less than 48 hours, Election Day polls will officially open across Illinois. And after a lengthy court battle, Chicagoans will decide whether or not City Council can raise the transfer tax on properties over $1 million. Now, supporters say the revenue is needed to help the city's homeless population.
We're not just talking about housing, we're not just talking about affordable housing, we're talking about helping people with mental illness, drug challenges, all of the other things that people need in society to make themselves whole. We have to help our people. A city that don't help your people is bound for destruction.
But critics have complained about the tax's potential impact on the real estate market and questioned who could actually bear the burden. They say there's not enough details yet on how the money will be spent. Now, if it's passed, City Council would then need to pass the change to the tax structure from a current flat tax of 0.75%. And here's what it would look like. Properties under $1 million would see a tax decrease to 0.6%. Properties $1 million would be taxed at a higher 2% rate. Properties at $1.5 million and up would see a 3% rate. The increased rate would only be paid on the part of the sale over $1 million or $1.5 million points. Proponents argue it's a cut for about 95% of sales. Erica Bland is the Executive Vice President at SEIU Healthcare Illinois, Indiana, part of the coalition urging voters to say yes to the ballot question on Tuesday. Erica, good to see you. Thanks for joining me Sunday morning.
Thank you for having me.
So the legal battle is over for now. So explain to viewers, why is it important that this thing passes on Tuesday?
It's important that this thing passes on Tuesday because we know that so many Chicagoans are facing housing insecurity. And when we have a permanent supporting funding stream for this, then we know that people who really need this help will actually be able to have access to the funding stream to be able to have those supporting services that wrap around to have the housing that they need. So many people are facing housing insecurity, or maybe 1 or 2 paychecks away, but there are people like members in my union, like Deborah Murphy, who gets up and goes to work every day, but she lost her job. And because she lost her job, she lost her housing. And people like that deserve to have access to, rental subsidies. And having a program like this in place would have made the difference between Deborah not being able to lose her housing. And so we say that people who have the money, like the rental subsidy or like the real estate folks, should pay their fair share by raising this real estate transfer tax and making this fund available for people like Deborah Murphy. It's time for them to pay
Erica,
their fair share.
let me step into that for a moment, because look, the money is, as you say, supposed to go to homeless services, but the concept homeless services is sort of a big umbrella. We know how government officials are, right? We have to hope that the money all goes where it's supposed to. But that being said, what program would you say needs to be targeted first?
So what we know is that the guardrails are already on this. Look, the language is spelled out in the ballot referendum, and the guardrails are on there to say that this money has to be spent on rehab properties, on new developments, on making sure that there are supplemental payments for rental. So the guardrails are there. It goes back to City Council, and then there is an advisory council that is made up of people who guide the projects that are approved. 50% of that council has to be made up of people who have the lived experience of facing housing insecurity. So you have the guarantee that people who are guiding this money are people who have the lived experience. I would think that you want people who have that lived experience guiding how this money is spent. That's your guarantee that this money is going to be spent the right way. And we've done our work to make sure that it's done the right way.
But as you know, there are groups who are raising questions. The Civic Federation, they've had some concerns about the tax. Let's talk a little bit about that. They have said, the Civic Federation and others have implied, that the new tax structure could impact the real estate market. It's already volatile, so it could impact that area. It's supposed to raise $100 million a year. That's the thought. So the question is, what is the impact, and what if the funds fall short?
I think we've already seen the impact, so I think that that's a false claim. I think that we've seen the market be volatile already. There's no impact that this is going to have. This is only a tax on properties that are sold. And so if a property doesn't sell, then the tax doesn't apply.
And what if the money comes up?
Is when the tax applies.
If the money comes up short, in other words, the $100 million doesn't come in, then what?
When the money comes in, then the properties are, or the projects are approved. And so that is why the advisory council is there. And so they can only approve projects as the money becomes available. They will be responsible with it. We can't spend money that's not there.
And some have said that one of the other possible ramifications here could be that with taxes going up, impacting buildings, the cost, the value of the buildings, the effect could be increased rents on people. How do you respond?
I mean, I think my response to that is a little facetious. I think that we can't trust the arguments of people who are responsible for getting us into this point. The responsibility, or actually the response to that, is that the real estate corporate interest folks are the reason that we're here. They have raised rents and pushed 350,000 people out of this city, mostly Black and brown folks, by raising rents. And so now they care about people's rents being raised. There was a study done by the University of Chicago that has shown that this will virtually have no impact on rents going up. At most, it will be $1 a month. So it's not true. There's no validity to it. But on the other hand, let's think about who we're helping. We're talking about 68,000 unhoused Chicagoans, 17,000 of which are CPS students. That's who we have the potential to impact. And so that's what we should really be weighing when we're talking about what's at stake in this.
So Erica, I have only 30 seconds left. By your own estimates, over 10 years, the revenue from the plan could raise enough to house an estimated 7,600 people, help another 15,000. You already said, but that number is 68,000. How do you make up the shortfall?
I think we don't have the opportunity to not do anything in this moment. We know that it will never be enough, but we also know that we can make great strides in this moment. And so we do have a responsibility to start making those strides and figure out how we continue to make compounded gains. And so we're asking people to vote now, on or before now, on question 1 on the ballot, yes, on ballot question number 1, on or before March 19th.
Erica Bland, thank you so much for your time this morning. Have a good Sunday. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to hear from the other side of this debate coming up in just a minute. And later this half hour,
I think it's appalling. I think it's disgraceful. I think it's failure.
Darren Bailey looks to oust incumbent Mike Bost from his downstate seat in Congress. Can he win this week, even without the backing of Donald Trump? We'll be right back.